Hey guys, kinggath here with another episode of the kinggath podcast. Today's guest is largely responsible for me not going into the fetal position and giving up on life after the launch of some settlements. She's also I think you're the team lead for Creative Clutter.
Yes.
And welcome, Damanding.
Hi, everyone.
So
Yes, it's a real girl on the internet. I know that's a rarity.
it was a big rarity on this podcast. I think I went like 30 episodes in a row with no female presence. I was like, that's odd. But it's a very male dominated field. Like the modding scene is very, very
Yeah.
heavy males.
Yeah, I'm usually assumed to be male. I'm sure that this will actually surprise some users that had no idea.
They just assumed you were a Hitler cat. Who's clearly got to be
Well,
male.
clearly.
So I'm trying to remember. I couldn't remember how we got introduced. I vaguely remember. I think I reached out to you to compliment you on Creative Clutter, but I don't remember if that was exactly how we got connected. Do you remember?
Um, yeah, oh gosh, I can't remember who introduced us, but I do remember that you did talk to me about clutter making, and I think you were interested in what processes we use to make clutter because and you were also thinking about possibly using some of the clutter because you were just frustrated with making clutter for your plots.
Right. Because you were one of two people who got to test a super early alpha build of some settlements, and you were the one who told me, and I didn't believe you, that this was going to be a huge mod. I was like, what? I mean, some people will use it, sure, but most people like to build their own stuff, and I think you
And
knew
I,
that wasn't true because your whole mod was based on that fact that people are lazy.
I, I told you before this mod even was published, I said this mod will be an absolute game changer for Fallout 4. This mod is going to be huge. It's gonna break everything in a good way.
uh,
But you're like totally breaking people's preconceptions about modding, and that was why I just joined on from the beginning. I was like, this is going to be impressive, and I really want to be there to watch the ride.
and you did too, because the troubleshooting and like complaints and excitement and like all this like crazy user
It
input
was
just came.
overwhelming.
It was nuts. I
Yeah.
think I think in the first 6 months we had several thousand messages. It was like on Nexus, not including comments on YouTube videos or
Yes.
direct messages, etc. And then
I,
we opened up
I
the
was.
forums.
I
It's
think we
nuts.
were spending hours a day just trying to keep up with it.
I think for the first few months, I was keeping track. I was doing 4 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep up,
Yeah.
and that was
Oh
with
yeah.
help. With you
Yes.
helped, and then Mamave helped, and then a handful of other people who started getting really into the mod started jumping in and helping. But and I didn't have any. I didn't believe you when you told me the mod was going to blow up, and so I had planned a vacation like a week after I released it. So I'm like, maybe I need to cancel my trip so that this doesn't die.
Yeah. I mean, you've had how many articles on like PC Magazine and other major websites have written about this mod by now? I've
Yeah, it
lost
was pretty
track.
wild. It was pretty wild. It was quite the trip. But I remember. Yeah, you're right. I contacted you because I was trying to figure out how I could make better clutter and make it faster because I wanted to do all the randomization, and yeah, it was like getting really tiresome to design all these things.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can imagine
yeah. And you've got
because
one.
that's
You
what
guys
I
have got
do.
right. Well, and you all have far more than we do in the Sim
Well,
Settlements
and it's
local.
it's it's not just creative clutter. I'm also now responsible for modular kitchen and do it yourself.
Mm,
So we have like a whole family of mods that all
yeah.
have clutter. Yeah, there's a lot of work.
Yeah, you seem to enjoy taking on as much as you can bear, as much as you can shoulder.
Sometimes more than I can. I would say that creative clutter, the main reason that creative clutter has continued as much and as long as it has is thanks to Miss Ray.
Yeah.
She's been like my right hand and has basically saved my sanity and also saved the mod. She's kept us going in a lot of ways. When there were times when I was just so burnt out I couldn't do anything at all,
Yeah.
and she soldiered on and got the updates out without me. And so everyone really needs to give a big thank you to Ms. Ray because she's kept it going this long.
Shout out to Miss Ray. Miss Ray, don't forget that message I
Yes.
last sent you. I actually invited Miss Ray to come mod live with me because she's one of the few people who's asked me for scripting advice on workshop items. Like I'd gladly help with that stuff because that's
Yeah,
so easy to me
she's
now.
mostly really into modeling.
Yeah.
She just loves modeling right now. That's like totally her thing is 3D modeling. And not even just for Fallout, like she's just gotten really into learning modeling in general. And she's making models for stuff that's not even designed to go into Fallout 4 in the first place. She's just really liking modeling right now.
That's awesome. So she picked up the 3ds Max workflow and everything.
She doesn't use 3DS. She's Blender.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I guess then that's
Yeah.
definitely not necessarily for. Although it's probably not for Fallout 4, but if it is, I think you all use the clutter mash or the what do you call it, the physics mashup, right? You're happy to just take items that are close enough and smash them in there.
It depends.
Yeah.
We've done a little bit of everything over the years. I I am capable of creating custom collision in 3ds Max. I'm not a big fan of it. There's been several reasons why I end up either having to reinstall my operating system or getting a new computer. Both of those have happened over the past 2 or 3 years, and I've had to reinstall 3ds Max several times. And I got a new computer in June, and I still haven't gotten around to reinstalling it. So currently I'm doing stealing collision the old way via NIF but
yeah.
So I can do it. I just don't always, because
Well,
who wants to
I was going to
install
say,
and deal with that program?
Well,
Plus, it's tedious.
and sometimes that software is the cause of the corruptions in hard drives and
Yes.
reinstalls because there's so many sketchy installers out there. But
Yeah.
I've seen some people doing some clever stuff lately with static collections to pull off the collision of like taking different things with collision, building the static collection, exporting it as a NIF, and then deleting the thing that had the collision, like delete the mesh itself and leaving the collision, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I've been using static collections more and more in the last year or so. When I did the Nor Penthouse Workshop mod, I made just dozens of pieces of new clutter for that mostly had a pre-war theme, and I did all of that as static collections. Now, of course, most of it needed to be able to build on, a table or something other than ground, and you can't do that with a pure static collection. So I had to export the majority of it to as a mesh, and then add snap points or be able to add the anything as ground keyword, things like that. So I wasn't able to use everything purely as a static collection, but I've been starting with a static collection more and more recently.
It's such a cool tool. It is a bummer that you can't do all the stuff like that. They didn't give us the ability to put active values and stuff on there because, man, you could do some powerful stuff for console users.
Well, and I do have one item. It's got a hospital gurney in it, and I've noticed that it makes this strange metal clanking sound sometimes when you place it.
Yeah.
And I've never been able to track that down, and I'm pretty sure the only way I'm going to be able to fix it is redo the collision myself in 3ds Max. And
so the gurney
that's a bug that's been in there for a year, and I haven't done anything with it yet.
Oh, that's all right. I've got plenty of those. It's just like, yeah, that's the amount of effort sometimes to fix some little tiny nuancy things is like, yeah, I don't have time for that.
Yeah, I mean, I will admit there was one time that I knowingly published a mesh that I knew before publishing was bugged, was broken, and was not going to work. And I was so frustrated with the update process by that point, I just decided, I don't care. I'll fix it later.
As long as it doesn't crash people's game, whatever.
No, it doesn't crash people's game, but it was it was when Fallout 76 was very first announced. So it was before the game even came out and before all the drama and Bethesda being Bethesda. And so, everybody was hyped about it at the time because it had just been announced.
Right.
And so I made several Fallout 76 inspired meshes just based on their trailer.
Right.
It was that original trailer where they're like showing off the vault, like showing off the bed, and there's like a display case and, a kitchen table with, party clutter on it and stuff like that. And I made a bed inspired by the bed in that trailer that had like, a Jangles moon monkey on it and like magazine and toys stuffed underneath and, stuff like that.
Right.
And I made it as a static collection, and I didn't realize that you can't use static collections as furniture.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They're definitely limited. It's strictly a decorative thing, and it is it's not even just decorative. It's specifically decorative things that go on the ground, and that's all they can be used for as
Yes.
workshop items. But
Yeah. So I made it into this bed into a working furniture item bed, and assigned Dance to lay in it just to make sure that it worked and that the uh, animation was aligned properly and everything. And
yeah.
told him to, get up and follow me again. And he stood up, and the bed was still attached to his back. And I thought, oh, that's not supposed to do that.
I don't think I've ever seen that. That's awesome. What a cool backpack.
it was a little strange, yeah.
The 76 thing was so disappointing because that trailer. Because if that were just the Fallout New Vegas of this game, it would have been super exciting. It would have been like, oh my god, we didn't expect another Fallout game already. And that's what that first trailer looked like, because a lot of people got really hyped about that. I know we've got an Easter egg for 76 in Sim Settlements because of that, because that first trailer was so exciting. And then when Jason Schreier posted that leak about how it's going to be an online survival game, we're all like, oh no, there's no way, and then he was right. It's like, oh my god.
Yep. And now here we are a year later, and Bethesda.
Todd,
what were you thinking?
I feel so bad I swear, Fallout 76 is the first game I've ever seen where the players are all kind of, pardon the use of the phrase, closeted, is that they like don't want anyone to know that they play it. Like they keep it a secret. Like I'm always shocked when I see Fallout 76 come up on Discord under people's names. I'm like, oh, you're one of those. Okay.
That's an interesting description. I like that.
Because they don't want to talk. Like not a lot of people seem to talk about it aloud because there's so much animosity against that game. So then the handful of people who like it, which apparently, I mean, I don't think Bethesda would keep pumping in resources to developing it if there weren't a fair amount of player base. Like I've heard them quoted saying that they have millions of players. So I doubt they're lying about that, but. It doesn't seem that way. Like if you look at how small the conversation is around it, it does not seem like there's actually millions of players.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think though that ultimately it'll be like numerous other multiplayer games that started off as a complete disaster and 2 years later became solid games, and it just took those 2 years of development to become solid games.
Yeah.
And for the game developers to pull their head out.
And see, that model of putting out something partially complete is what I did with Sim Settlements, and I think that's perfect for mods because we're not getting paid to do this stuff. But it seems pretty sketch for major companies now to just be treating it like that's okay to do.
I have to ask though, how much of what you're currently working on in Sim Settlements had you envisioned from the very beginning? And how much of that did you come up with because the mod took off better than you expected?
So I would say everything in Conqueror is way beyond my wildest dreams. Like that's stuff where I had ideas for. In my head, it was like I would love to see something like what we all expected from the Skyrim Civil War, but didn't actually get. You know how there was like there's hints that the Civil War was going to be a real thing. It now is thanks to mods, but I kind of wanted that with the factions. You know, it seemed to me it could be really cool to have like the Railroad Institute and Brotherhood all fighting. But that was on my maybe one day mods after I finish what I want to do with Sim Settlements. So for Sim Settlements, everything we've been doing with Conqueror is all way beyond. The city plans are way beyond only because city plans are what I originally envisioned, but I had no idea how to do it. So I'm like, all right, well, I can't do that. So I'll do it at a much smaller scale. Right. So I was like, so that's how I came up with the plot idea of, all right, well, I can do like when you think about Sim City and you got like the little blocks you put down or the little squares you put down. I was like, well, I can just do each one of those as a workshop item. And but the original vision was always, I want to get this to the point where it's full automation and there's enough plot designs to where you never have to see repeats. And then there are some other features we're working on now that I kind of envisioned. But yeah, it definitely went way beyond. And some of the direction of the mod changed dramatically because people showed me how they actually want to use it. Like I had never had any intention of allowing people to select building plans.
I remember before the mod was even published, I gave you a list of things. I said, I'm telling you now, these are going to be the most asked for requests. And you poo-pooed the list and you didn't listen. And we got inundated with those
Oh
requests.
yeah, I think the first one was you said, "Can you just make each of these buildings buildable?" And I was like, "No, that defeats the whole purpose." But then eventually I had to cave because
Another,
it was watching
another,
people play the mod, and they would pick up the plots and drop them again so that the build to try and get the building they wanted, and like, oh, that's so
yep.
painful to watch.
And especially with the agricultural plots, they wanted to be able to pick the type of plant.
Right, right. Like they really wanted their potatoes and their corn and whatever to make
The moot
adhesive.
fruit to make the adhesive.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was one piece of advice you gave me that I blew off. Another one that I didn't blow off, which was probably for everybody's sanity. I originally, so if any of you have watched the in-depth series of videos I did for Sim Settlements,
Yes.
originally it was called the Quick Start video, and it was 45 minutes long. And I sent that over to Damanding, and I said, "Can you watch this and let me know if it teaches everything?" And before you even watched it, you're like, "Well, first of all, I'm not watching this. It's 45 minutes long. You need to trim this down to like 5 minutes." And I was like, "Okay, that's a good point." So it was just me rambling, all excited about all sorts of stuff. And I'm sure anybody watching or listening to this podcast knows I tend to do that. Is especially during my
Oh
live
yeah.
streams when I'm trying to explain something, I'm just like, "Oh yeah, let me show you this little thing. Let me show you this thing," and it takes me a while to get to the point. And that was the first video I made for Sim Settlements.
Oh, I just I'm ADHD. I really struggle watching videos in general. I can't listen to podcasts at all because it just does something to my brain. It literally makes me angry. I can't listen to audiobooks. And so, I mean, if I were to try and sit through 45 minutes of a video, I would have had to kill you. And, it's illegal.
Yeah.
So, I was like, look, I realize not all of your users are ADHD like me, but some of us are. And the rest of us might appreciate a smaller video.
Oh yeah, and it's definitely the way to go. I think anything more than 10 minutes for something that's supposed to be a guide is just excessive. Because I get annoyed now too when I have to go watch those. I get annoyed sometimes when somebody makes me watch a 3-minute video, and
Yep.
so which is funny because that goes counter to and it's irrelevant in the sense of. We should just be building videos that make sense for their purpose. But YouTube is trying to push everybody to make everything a 15 or 20-minute video so that they can cram ads in there. And it goes totally against what people actually want to consume.
Yeah.
Like everybody wants just get to the point, give me the 3 or 4-minute video. And I know eventually it works. Eventually, if you get a big enough audience, like I can do 45-minute Let's Plays and there's an audience for it because people enjoy what I have to say. But if that was the first thing I came out of the gate with, people are like, nah, get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to develop your audience before you can get away with that sort of thing.
Right. And so that was a very, very good piece of advice that I ended up following of breaking it down into smaller videos. I've kind of fallen off the wagon on that with Conqueror. I never actually did a proper set of little snippet videos, which I really need to do, and it's been on my agenda for a while. It just keeps getting shoved back because I've got so many things going. I suffer from the same thing you do of volunteering for way more than I have time to do. But it's always exciting in the moment when you get all hyped up about the ideas and it's like, yeah, let's do that. Why don't we do that?
I know. I have so many mod ideas and not enough energy.
Sure.
It's not even the time, it's just the energy and the motivation to get through it all.
Yeah, I've actually made like massive lifestyle changes since this mod took off, just to up my energy levels so that I can do more modding. Because it's so exciting to ride the wave. It's more than like I've been modding forever, but none of my mods took off enough, and there's definitely a massive boost. Even though I don't just do this for an audience, there's some component of the audience that encourages me to do it. Like if I was making something for just myself, I'm gonna cut out a lot of the polish because I'm like, well, I can just console command it. I know these, but just having an audience makes me want to do things much more streamlined and more like a game. And then it was like, all right, well, to do all that and not lose motivation because I'm like stuck in the weeds doing this detail work, I just need more time and more energy.
Yeah, well, I go through periods. I've noticed that over the past several years of modding, I go through cycles. Like I'll get really excited and motivated, and I'll work really hard and put out a lot of work, and I'll have put so much work and energy into that for so long that it just completely and totally burns me out, and I can't do anything for months.
Mm.
And then, after I've taken several months off and not getting anything done, which is when poor Ms. Ray ends up having to do everything for me, then I finally get the energy back and can get back into modding and whatnot. And so I'd like to find a healthier way.
Right. So less crash and burn.
Yeah. Well, I recently started taking ADD meds, which I hadn't been on for several years.
Okay.
And so I just started those again a little over a month ago. And so I'm hoping that will help reduce some of the crash and burn part.
Well, what phase are you in right now? Are you in you're excited to mod phase, or are you in a
I'm in a mostly excited to mod phase.
Okay.
I mean, even when I'm in an excited to mod phase, I'll go through like little short mini periods, like maybe a week or so, where I'm just thoroughly frustrated. Like I spent all weekend trying to deal with bugs in a new mod that I'm working on, and I just could not make any progress all weekend long, and it drove me nuts.
Yeah, those are rough.
So right now I'm in a very frustrated phase. But so if anybody has been paying any attention, I released a little short mini mod on Bethesda this weekend to extend the VR Workshop's beach decor.
Oh, and they had a bunch of secret stuff in there, right? That was just locked down.
Yeah, there was a fair amount of cut content that either had some bugs, wasn't fully finished, things like that. And so I restored a fair amount of the cut content, and then added some new things based on it.
Okay.
It was really minor. I mean, really not a big deal. It was a couple days worth of work and really lazy effort days at that. I mean, like, it's something that I could have put out, and if I'd taken a solid day at it, I could have put it out in like a day and a half of work.
So what has got you frustrated right now? Like which project are you? I think I know the project you're working on. It's the one that I donated some assets to, right? I told you could use the
yes.
particular. Yeah, all right. I don't want to spoil it if you want to keep it a surprise for people. So.
Oh no, it's not a surprise. I've been talking about it.
Okay. So it's a cyberpunk type of thing. Like what? I don't remember how you described it, but I just knew the neon letters I had would fit nicely in it.
Yeah. So there's the Neon Flats Creation Club. Mm-hmm. And basically doing the same thing with that Robotin and I did for the Noor Penthouse. The Neon Flats and the Noor Penthouse Creation Club packs were actually both made by the same creator, and we just really like his style of art, and so we just really enjoyed taking the assets from that and just really heavily expanding on making what's available as workshop buildable.
Sure.
So Robotin, who is of Snappy House Kits fame. He does all of the architectural mesh work.
I gotta say, his username is appropriate because that man is a machine. I don't know how he pumps out the stuff he does because it's a lot.
I have no idea.
Oh, he does a lot of the most tedious things, and he crushes it.
He really does. And the thing is, though, is he's got so much tedious work that he can't even get through it all himself.
Which speaking of, everybody if you guys love the Project Blueprint mods for Sim Settlements, thank Robotin. He gave us so many assets for that. He was like a hero for that project.
I would also say thank Whisper, because he's going through the tediousness of adding snap points and collision and other stuff for all of those assets.
Oh yeah, I try and thank Whisper every time we make an update, because Whisper is doing the grind right now in there.
Oh, that's the side of modding that is just so awful.
It's pretty brutal. I try and make an effort to make sure I have a mix of, like, whenever I'm in one of those projects, yes, I'll do it for like it's that type of thing where I throw on Netflix, watch a couple episodes, and grind through that while I'm doing it, and then it's like, all right, now I'm not touching that for 2 weeks. I'll come back to that later because it's
oh god, I love. Don't get me wrong, I love modding, but there are some parts of modding that are just so unbelievably tedious that it's enough to make anybody quit.
Well, especially if you're limited on time. Like, if you've only got a couple hours a week to mod, you definitely don't want to be spending it doing that kind of stuff. But for those of us who are horribly addicted to modding and
It is an addiction.
Right, it's an absolute addiction. It makes it really hard to play any game at all anymore. Like when I'm on a modding kick in my life, every time I go try and play a game, I'm like, I just want to go make more stuff.
I have that same exact problem, and my boyfriend can attest to you. He has been begging me to play any of a half a dozen different games over the past year, and begging me to try out these games. He's like, just try them, just try them. I'm like, I can't. I'm so addicted.
Yeah, it's awesome. It feels really good to be able to create stuff, and you still feel like you're playing a game in a different way. At least this is how I approach it. Is the game for me now is how do I like wrangle the serpent that is the creation kit into doing what I want it to do. That's my game.
Yeah, my current bane of existence is snap points, as usual.
Are you trying to do something fancy?
No, I'm just trying to get snap points to behave the way they're supposed to.
Yeah. Sometimes with collision and stuff, they can get real wonky. We've got one piece in our toolkit that Ethrion actually made for us that will not allow a door to snap into this frame. And Whisper keeps reminding me of it. It's like, you got to fix this, you got to fix this. And I keep trying, and then I get frustrated and I give up. But I don't let that make me quit modding. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to shelve that. We're just not going to touch that piece for a long time again.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that I've had a complete block on snaps. I've had numerous meshes over the years that just never got published because I couldn't get snap points to work. I've had other meshes that took 6 months to get published because I was just so sick of snap trying to deal with them and getting them fixed that I just set it aside for months and months and came back to it later. And sometimes it took several times of coming back to it to get it to work.
Now, do you hold the line on that as a measure of quality? Is that all of the items that you put in Creative Clutter need to have proper snap pointing?
Well, if they were intended to snap to something, then yes, the snap point needs to work.
Sure. I guess I was just, so you won't put, so one of the things we did with the Project Blueprint mods is we realized, okay, a lot of these items without snap points are going to be horribly frustrating to use, but there's a small subset of the user base that doesn't care. They're just like, just give me more stuff to build with, and they'll deal with the complications.
And I can't do that. It just, my heart doesn't let me do that.
Okay.
If it's not working.
Yeah.
If it's not working for people that are not using Place Everywhere, then it's not working.
Fair enough. Well, that's actually why we took the Project Blueprint mods and hid them in a toolkit. You can't just download those separately and easily. We wanted to make sure it was like, you have to go through some effort to get through this, to actually get to these. And this actually is an awesome segue, because I know this is one of the arguments against mod packs, which is, I think, is actually a reasonable argument, is that one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, other than to because you're a great mod author and you helped some settlements immensely, but you also are one of the people that holds firm against mod packs, and I've been shilling for them really hard. But one of the things that you and a couple other people I've talked to about this who are against them have mentioned the fact that playing with mods requires a certain amount of commitment and dedication to learning things and understanding things. You got to be willing to jump through a few hoops, and if you're not the type of person who's willing to do that, you're probably going to be a horrible customer for mod authors who are not getting paid.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we have for anyone that cares to look, you can Google Creative Clutter, and if you Google Creative Clutter, you can still see the Nexus link. That's an easy way to find it because you can't find it through search on Nexus anymore. But if you go to the Creative Clutter page on Nexus and you see our hidden message, it has a link to the mod on BethNet, but it's also got a link to a statement that I wrote up and, of course, approved with the team, and they had their input and whatnot. But it was primarily something I wrote up when Wabbajack was first discovered, when I first learned about it, and it became a thing. But I encourage people to Google the mod page, go look at that statement. It's at towards the very end of our hidden message on Nexus. But to summarize it, basically, there's several things about modding that keep us motivated and keep us going. Mm-hmm. And our user interaction is by far the biggest.
I agree with that 100%.
That is by far the best part of modding. To give an example, today, some person I don't know, I've never talked to, just messaged me randomly out of the blue on Discord, and we happened to share a server. And he said, "Hey, I made this YouTube video, and it features creative clutter in it. And I thought you might be interested." And I watched it, and it was this just really lovely video of all these different Christmas scenes, like in the castle with the Minutemen theme, and in a vault, and more of like a wasteland type shack. And it used content from like the Holiday Creation Club pack. I recognized Eleonora's Christmas uh, decorations pack in there, and I recognized Creative Clutter Christmas decoration stuff in there. And it was so nice. It was so cool, that I just got this like gift randomly out of my day. And I shared it with the team, and one of the team members was having a rough day, and it helped them out too. So it's things like that if mod packs are being automated so that the users don't even come to our web pages anymore except for support, we lose out on that, and we lose out on that sort of interaction, and that interaction is a big part of our motivation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big part of it.
Sure. Yeah, that's absolutely a reasonable concern. That's because, like you said, I agree that if it wasn't for user enthusiasm, I definitely would not have turned this into my basically sole hobby for the last 2 years. Hell, 3 years. It's because I actually started designing the mod well before I released it.
Yeah, this what is it called? Oh no, I'm gonna botch the words, so I'm not gonna even bother. But basically, like this massive opera.
Yeah, it's become quite the thing. But yeah, I agree with that. And one of the things I've been trying to explore is how can we solve for that? Because if you look at modding pre something like Nexus Mod Manager, it was even more difficult. And so there were probably hardliners then who were in the same position you are now, where it was like, no, this makes it too easy. This is not going to be good for us. It's going to change the user base or whatever. So like, I think that like whenever there's a new level of automation, there's a certain level of pushback, and I think it's reasonable, but I feel like there's got to be a way to get past it. And I don't think I have the solutions because I come from a background of always push forward. Like in software, we're always just like, everything's got to be as user friendly as possible. That's all that matters. So I haven't been able to come up with solutions for this.
I would say that my issue is not with automation or making things easier.
Okay.
I mean, I understand, especially with a lot of the old guard mod authors, that modding is going to be difficult, and if you're not willing to take on a little difficulty, then you shouldn't be doing it. I mean, I kind of get what they're coming from, but that's not entirely where my stance is based out of.
Right.
So just to give you an example, this past June, I took a week off work, and I was a little sick. It turned out I ended up having pneumonia, and I was sick for a month.
Oh.
But originally it was a scheduled vacation that I just started getting sick on. And I spent that whole week going through Dark Lexi Ladies, Legacy of the Dragonborn. Dragonborn.
Freudian slip there. It is kind of like Skyrim porn. That mod is very, very good.
It was not from Lover's Lab. But I went through her mod guide, it's hundreds and hundreds of mods.
Yeah.
And I spent the whole week going through that guide. It's really advanced. It's so much work. I have never in my life spent that much effort trying to install mods. I mean, it was it was insane. It was a lot of work.
Yeah. And
I can tell you after that experience, I was like, oh, I understand better than ever why users don't want to do this, because it was a nightmare.
Well, I think because I recently had a conversation with Hal Gary, he cited that particular list is the exact reason him and the other guys he'd been working on started designing these automators.
It was a beast. But so even though I've slogged through that as a user, and I totally get that, I really do.
Yeah.
It's I'll say what Thuggy Smurf who's a big Fallout Quest modder for anyone who doesn't know who he is. He's got an article on mod packs that he has on his depravity mod, and he's got some really good quotes on there. And let me pull up a couple that I thought I wanted to mention.
Okay.
Okay, here's a quote from his article. He says, "Why are some mod authors so vocal about opposing mod packs?" He says, "Modders are not paid in money. As users, we have to pay them in some other form. Usually that's a combo of feedback and appreciation. Mod packs threaten to remove these elements, and no modder wants their role reduced to that of a customer service rep answering dumb questions about mod packs." That sums it up really well.
I've said this before, but I did a podcast with Chris Takahashi and Unoctium some time ago, and partway through it, Chris said to me, "Congrats on your mod going successful. Welcome to your new customer service job." Like, I don't think that the mod packs. I think that happens anyway. That part of it, but
yes,
but that part combined with losing access to your user base for feedback is asking a lot.
It is.
Yeah. So
to lose the good interactions with
Right.
the users when they, come and post their YouTube videos for me to check out, or,
Right.
Tell me about, the latest build that they had and how some piece was perfect for it, or, just all of those little things really do add up and help make a difference. I mean, I can spend even now an hour a day still on just answering user questions.
Mhm.
I get PMs, I get questions on the now that we're no longer on Nexus, I have forum support threads on BethesdaNet because their mod comment section is atrocious.
Oh God, yes. I instantly disable every time I upload to that site.
Oh yeah. Instantly disable comments and tell everybody, okay, go to the forum thread. It's at least more manageable than this.
I feel the same way about Nexus too. I'm not a fan of their little forum section, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm still spending a large chunk of my day doing customer service support, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I mean, I knew that was going to happen when I published mods, and I accepted that. But to do that and also lose out on all the good parts, that I'm not so excited about.
So I'm not convinced we will lose out on all the good parts, but I'm curious based on what you have seen of the automation, because I knew you weren't against automation as soon as you told me that you don't want to release things that aren't user friendly, because that to me says that you understand that really the point of creating all this stuff is to give people a better user experience. So you're not against the automation. So what do you think? Or have you even thought about what could be done in this automation world that could help alleviate some of this problem of losing the touch with these users? Because I will say that there are a lot. I have a ton of mods installed right now. I have 260 some mods. I could name the authors of maybe 50 of them. So like, there's already a lot of disconnect between like the user base and the authors, because like I don't have to go very far down a page. For example, I can click on a mod somebody sends me a link to, and I can click the download with mod manager without ever seeing any of the description of the mod.
Yeah, to a certain degree, we can't change how people are going to behave.
Yeah.
And some users are never going to read the mod description page, and whether there's an automation tool or not, they're still not going to read that mod description page.
Yeah.
And those are going to be the same dumb users that are literally asking a question that is right below the sticky answering that very question on so many mod pages.
I've gotten, okay, so speaking of the video, so the videos you had me remake, the number of questions that the answer is in those 5-minute videos on those videos drives me insane.
Yes.
Like, really? Really? You clearly didn't watch the 5-minute quick start video I made.
I have seen so many screenshots from so many different mod authors where they have a stickied comment answering a question, their most common question, and literally right below it, the most recent comment asking that very same question. So obviously those users are just kind of hopeless.
Lost
We're never going to get them anyway.
Right. So
obviously we'll never get those users. But when I was going through that mod quest. I'll call it a mod quest. It wasn't even a mod list. It was a mod quest. It was a modding install quest for
Yeah.
Skyrim.
Takes you 1 week real time. Good luck.
Oh my gosh. I mean, granted, I was really sick at the time, so I mean, I was kind of only, but I was spending like 7 hours a day working at it. But
Yeah.
again, I was sick, so I mean, it was really slow going.
I mean, I've heard horror stories of people that it is a challenge to do, because even though you think you followed all the steps, you load in game and you find purple textures or crash. You're like, I missed a step, but where?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and yeah, when I mean, the night that I finally had everything done, I had gotten down to the very last step of that whole mod quest and go to start the game for the first time. Well, it wasn't the first time because I'd done a test earlier on for something or other. But anyway, go to start the game for real for the first time, immediately crashed the desktop. And so, of course, I'm going for the usual suspect of something's missing a master. I'm combing through my mod organizer list to see if there's anything red. And eventually I found out that there were 2 mods in the list that the versions that the mod list suggested just flat don't work. So it was some either, possibly outdated instructions. I don't know. But for whatever reason, these 2 mods just weren't working. And so I had to end up Googling how to fix it. And so I was so frustrated.
Yeah.
So I do get it. But what I noticed also going through that mod quest is that
I love that you keep referring it to like that's just its name now.
The mod quest.
The mod quest.
But I actually did at least skim most of the mod description pages. Obviously, some of the mods were very simple, or I had used them previously, and those I didn't really spend much time rereading. But any of the mods on the list that were new to me that I'd never used before, I read the mod pages.
Sure.
And I part of the reason that I became a mod author is because I wanted to make my game work the way I wanted it to work. Mm-hmm. And there weren't already existing things to do that, so I ended up having to make them myself. But that comes out of the willingness to learn how to do those hard things that some users don't want to learn how to do.
Sure. But I think one of the so this you're bringing up a point. I actually read Thuggy Smurf's article as well. You sent me a link actually.
Yes.
And one of the points I agreed with most of it, but one point I disagreed with was something similar to what you just said, and that's there was the implication that without the challenge of trying to do modding, that people wouldn't be willing to overcome challenges. And I think that has nothing to do with the challenge of modding. I think that's just like a personality trait. I think that some people are willing to try and solve problems, not rely on others to solve them for them, and like dig in and find the solution. Or if there's not the offering out there that they want, they'll just do it themselves. I think that's just like there's just some people that are built that way.
I think it's a bit of both.
So you think that if modding is too easy, then nobody mods anymore? I mean, like that's what I disagree. That was the implication that I disagree with, is like that if then nobody new who comes to modding, if it's not hard, will ever try and mod themselves. And I don't think that that's the case.
I think that what you're saying about it being a personality trait is largely correct. But I also think that for those that are on the border, mm-hmm. that the success from figuring out how to get mods to work together, just learning how to open up Xedit and have 2 mods that are incompatible, and you learn how to create a patch for it.
Right.
Even something as simple as that's a success that makes you feel good and makes you want to keep going. And
you learn about how some of the engine kind of works together, which there's actually several people, like RuinedWorld, I think, is one who started his modding career by making patches for mods.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
Yeah. But I think that there are other ways to learn how to mod. I think that is an awesome gateway to get people to learn, but I don't think it's the only way. I mean, I'm making an effort to make sure that's not the case. Like, that's why I started Bethesda Mod School.
Well, I would say that the something I wanted to say earlier and we got sidetracked into a different conversation. But one of the things I wanted to say earlier,
did I fail to warn you that I like to chase rabbits around and go all over the place?
You're talking to someone with ADHD. Trust me. Chasing rabbits is not my problem. I mean, it is my problem, but
Sure.
you know, yeah, I'm not going to be
You're not going to
offended
stop
about
me.
that. No.
Like, oh, shiny, I'm in. Let's go.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
But no, one of the things I wanted to say earlier is that one of the reasons that I was so willing to follow you and do support for some settlements from the very beginning is that I could see how dedicated you were to creating tutorials and to teaching other people how to make mods.
Mm. Yeah, that's all. That's always been something important to me. I don't know why. I feel like once I understand something, it's like my obligation to teach others.
Yes, yes. And I have not done a very good job of publishing all the tutorials I've half started over the years.
Okay.
Obviously, but I do teach people one-on-one. And I mean, you've probably seen me in the Sim Settlements Discord channel, you know,
yeah, you're very helpful there.
One thing or another
all the time. Absolutely.
So, you know, it's not as big an audience and as big a reach as your tutorials have made, but just the fact that was something that was important to you and was important to me is really a large part of why I stuck around for so long. It's because I wanted to be able to also contribute to teaching people how to make mods for themselves. I'm not one of those that gets offended about competition, man. I just like bring them on, you know, more content. Yes.
Yeah. More options. Let's do this. I honestly, when the rolling back to the beginning of the conversation with the Sim Settlement stuff, I honestly thought I would come back from that vacation I took and you and my main would be like, okay, we're done. Good luck. That was enough. So then the fact that you're still here 3 years, the fact that you're still here 3 years later is nutty.
It was definitely brutal. My significant other, I think, was just like, are you ever going to be done with modding stuff? Like, no.
Are you then trying to the reverse of like, come over to the dark side? We have mods.
Well, and see, that's a really frustrating thing. He's a programmer. He's been a software programmer for years and years and years. You know, he's got all of these amazing skills that would just be awesome to partner with and make mods with, and he won't do it.
I can hear him chuckling in the background.
as much as he has begged me for years, for the last 6 months or more, to, you know, just try this game.
Yeah.
You know, I've also begged him, well, just try this mod idea with me. And it hasn't worked.
Well, once it does, you know he'll be hooked because it's an addictive. Like, especially if anybody who has that creative gene of just like, and obviously, I think anybody who's a programmer, or I think he's also a musician, right? Anybody with those tenets are going to be the type to get hooked on making mods once they dip their toes in.
See, I think he basically does his own form of what we're doing, which is he does a lot of Linux community support.
Okay.
So like he contributes some code to Linux projects, but also spends a lot of time on IRC because he's really old school like that.
Oh man, I haven't seen an IRC client in like 15 years.
Yeah, he's on Discord pretty much only for me and his Final Fantasy 14 guild.
I love
but
Discord
no,
so
he spends all his time on IRC, you know, helping out Linux users.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he does do a lot of what we're doing just for a different community.
Sure. Yeah, it is definitely hard to be involved in multiple. I've had people ask me if I'd do mods for other games. Like, I don't have the bandwidth for that. Like, once you get hooked, once you get dialed into one community, it's pretty hard to branch off. Like,
yes,
and provide the same dedication and like focus. So yeah.
The other thing I've noticed is that it's impossible for me to play Fallout 4 vanilla now.
Oh yeah, that would be rough.
I can't do it. It's just not that great a game in some ways. The story is terrible. It's a terrible story, and it does not have much replayability unless you're into settlement building,
mm-hmm.
making mods, or you're using quest mods like what Thuggy and his folks put out, you know?
Yeah. I really appreciate the depth Thuggy has gone to try and clean up some of the the lack of
terrible
role playing.
story and
Well, yeah, just like give you more options so you have more control. But I can also see exactly why Bethesda did what they did. Like the amount of effort it takes to build all of the to build up all the branches and choices and have them all meaningful and not have the game fall apart any more than it already does. It's just like it's not the effort to profit ratio is not there. Like they would go out of business if they tried to deliver at that level, I think. At least in this engine.
And poor Arthmore and his team would just be out of a job. The poor unofficial patch team. I mean, what would they do with all their free time if Bethesda didn't have so many bugs to patch?
I still can't believe how many. Whenever I go look at the patch notes for the UFO 4P, it's crazy. How many every single patch is just page after page of bug fixes. Like, how do you still find these at this point?
Well, and especially, I actually reported one. This past spring. I actually signed up, got an account on their AFK Mods site, and actually reported a bug myself. But you got to understand what makes what they're doing even more impressive is that they can't fix any pre-combined problems.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like the bug that I reported is one that there's a section of railroad track that's separated just slightly. It's like by several units near Beantown Brewery.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they can't just move it to put the two sections of track back together. It breaks precombines. So they end up having to like throw a trash pile to cover it up or something, So, I mean, things like that. Just think about how many more bug things that they would be fixing if precombines were not a problem in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how many holes there are in the world. There's just like little spots where if you look at the right angle, you can just see through to the void.
Oh yeah.
I never noticed that the first time I played through these games though. Like I think that is something that I'm always impressed with the Bethesda games, even though they're buggy and there's lots of little problems. Is when I'm in it for the first time, I'm just so enamored with all the freedom I have and like the random stuff I can do. I don't even care about those little issues, and I think that's
you
kind of how
they notice them.
Don't even notice them. You're right. Like when I've seen them after the fact or see them listed in bug reports, I'm like, really? That was their issue? Okay, but yeah, you're just so pulled in. But then those of us who are like, I'm going in for a second time, then you've got the energy to start looking around for the smoke and mirrors and find the problems.
Well, and I can't believe I had never noticed that before. The only reason I noticed it is that I was working on an update to functional bridges, which still isn't released. And I have in the update that is still yet to be released, there is, rather than dealing with that train car between Great Garden and Oberlin Station, rather than removing it like most mods do, so you can just walk across the train tracks between those two settlements, I tried to come up with an immersive, post-world, nuclear annihilation method of getting around an immovable obstacle.
Okay.
And so I have like this, I have like these, this like, I like over-engineered this thing where I've got like all these concrete blocks stacked up and like these big, like 4x4 beams going through the concrete blocks that, go underneath the railroad car to provide supports and everything. And then this like shack bridge over it and all of this stuff to like, so there's like, basically you're making a bridge around the train car.
Okay. That's intense.
And so I was working on that, and I noticed that gap between the train tracks and game, and I was like, oh, I must have missed that when I was manually cleaning wild edits. And so I went in and looked, and it wasn't my bug.
Oh yeah, I've had that happen too, where I'm like, oh crap, I must have accidentally moved up an object, which is such a pain. I don't know how Bethesda handles that. I mean, I guess they don't have to worry about it because they're not going to break their own. They don't have to. They can just regen the recombines. But you would think that they would have some tools to be like, all right, we need to go make some tweaks in this cell, but we don't want to mess anything up. But I think they don't care. They're just like, we just regen the precombines and then roll it all into the new build.
Well, I mean, if you look at the sheer number of ITMs in their own DLC.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they're not.
They clearly just don't. They don't need to care.
Right. Yeah, that is a nice advantage of, and that's probably why. I mean, one of the reasons that you see a lot of the big quest mods are like, no, we're getting out of this world space. We need our own world space so we can do whatever we want, and then they don't. Then they can be under the same lax restrictions
Yeah.
of being able to just be a little more free to focus on just putting in cool content, not worrying about, oh God, did I accidentally click on the wrong thing? Okay, did I have my layers frozen? Like it's a pretty perilous thing to go in there and start adding stuff into the game world. Like you're always just worried about causing problems.
Yes. The way I always describe it to new users of the CK that are making world space edits is I always say, look, if you have the render window loaded with something in it, some world space,
Yeah.
and you glance at it while sneezing out of the corner of your eye from across the room, you have just created 6 ITMs.
It does feel that way sometimes. I'm like so many times where I'm super careful. I just need to drop in this recipe. I'm going to just drop it on this desk and walk away. And then it's like 3 wild edits. Like, come on.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's insane. Like I said, like you just glance at it from across the room. You sneeze wrong. It's
unfortunate. But it is nice that they have built this game to handle this level of complexity in file management, of being able to have all these different files editing the same cells and all working together. It's pretty magical. So as much as we make fun of them and everything, I still would prefer if Bethesda keeps down this road of like working with this engine and giving us all this freedom, rather than just going to something like a lot of people have talked like, oh, they need to go to Unity or they need to go to Unreal Engine 4. I was like, no, I love all the freedom we have in this, and like even though it does come with the downsides of some of these systems can crash into each other and break, it also is like freedom you don't have in any other game.
Well, and if they do switch engines, I've heard that some of those other engines are really not mod friendly.
Yeah, none of them are. None of them are designed to have these files all interweaving. Like this is a very unique system they've created, which is why we're never gonna. When you see other games that have modding, like the next closest game after a Bethesda game, I think is Witcher 3, and it has like a tenth of the mods of something like Skyrim, because it's not as free to mod. It's not as open to it, so you are highly limited in what you can pull off.
And they're not getting such an advanced tool. And as much as we all complain about the creation kit, it's a really advanced tool.
It's the dev kit.
Yes,
it has some things stripped, but not much.
There's, of course, there's complaints that they don't give us the whole kit. And of course they don't, because they can, I'm sure, for licensing reasons and whatnot. But what they give us is an incredibly powerful tool.
Yeah, I think,
and it's amazing that they just let us do that.
Yeah, I think the only thing they cut us off from are they cut us off
Havoc
from a lot
stuff,
of
because that's expensive.
Yeah, any of the stuff that's licensed, like tools like that, I think they can't give us. And then there's a lot of console commands that are available to them that aren't available to us, which is a real bummer. And somebody data mined them all. There's a cool site with them, and so I've tried all of the cool sounding ones, and none of them are enabled. Like there's supposed to be one that lets you see the nav mesh, and I'm like, oh my god, that would be so helpful. And that one's not available to us. I was like, why not? Just give us all those commands. Who cares?
Yeah. What I would love is to be able to see collision in NIF scope.
Yeah, so you can before you run it through Elrich, but for whatever reason, after you do that, it gets butchered. But I guess the creator of NIF scope got kind of burnt out and bailed on. I
believe that the reason for that is that the collision that it has before it gets run through Elrich is actually Skyrim collision.
That makes sense. Okay, so then it was able to just read it naturally.
Yeah, and so the Skyrim had community modding tools that could do collision, because that was before Havoc licensing changed.
Yeah.
So my understanding is, and I could be wrong about this, but my understanding is that when Microsoft bought Havoc, the licensing price jacked up sky high, and so people were able to do it for Skyrim modding tools, but they couldn't do it for Fallout 4 because nobody wanted to spend 20 some odd grand on Havoc license.
Yeah, Microsoft like pulled a Martin Shkreli on Havoc. It was really good. I was like, come on, you jerks! Like that was such an awesome tool that was given available to everybody. Well, but that's why we're all locked into the old version of 3DS Max too, is because of the Havoc stuff, because those tools basically got pulled from everybody. But I want to double back a little bit in our conversation, because I don't think we gave this enough airtime, is talking about the mod pack stuff, because I think that first of all, I know you are in a minority of people who are opposed to them. So I think that we're going to see them charge forward anyway. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the reasons that you pulled off of Nexus, is because you can
Yes.
see that writing on the wall. It's happening. So
Oh, yeah.
you're not going to let yourself be abused by it, and that's understandable. But what I would love to talk about is, what, from your perspective, what kind of things do you think could be done to help mitigate this problem of disconnecting users from? Because I think, like I said, I think one of the things I've noticed with Nexus is, by them having the download with manager button, they've already created a situation where a lot of people don't engage with the authors. So like, what kind of things could be done, do you think, to help get some better user interaction, at least, or at least find the users that are going to be interested in talking with the developers and having a productive conversation and giving them positive feedback, as opposed to treating them like just cogs in this mod pack machine?
I'm not positive that you can meet the needs of both sides in any way that's going to be useful to anyone. Because automation is just going to bypass the mod page entirely, and there's really not any good way to get around that. I mean, you could have, sidebars that little slideshow sort of thing that the user sees while their mod pack is installing, but
it almost seems like
it's better than nothing, but it's not ideal.
Right. And I guess with that, we almost need like in-game methods of displaying information for the authors.
I've heard some people suggesting things like that. I think most of the ideas I've seen around that are just going to end up annoying the users.
Right. Like,
it'll become Macware, like a certain
coming
site
up
that I won't mention has become lately.
It would be the one place I thought of that could work well with it, that I think, and some users would not like it, but I think that those users are also the type that we've talked about before, who also don't read descriptions and are going to just complain about things that are written right in front of them. But I think it could be the loading screen could be an awesome place to do stuff like that, to be like advertising the mods.
And I think that's one of the better suggestions by far.
We would just need, but creating some sort of tool that could generate mods on the fly that did load screens like that. But I think if mod packs became the reality, that might become a standard practice, is that mod authors
just creating their own load screens.
Right, knowing that's like, this is the only way I'm going to get recognition, is if I create these load screens. And maybe that'll be...
Well, it's not like they're that hard.
Right, they're real easy to create. In fact, one of the there's a special thing built into the engine to allow you to create static collections for load screens, and you can use any form type. They don't have to be statics. So so like, it's designed to support...
That's because loading screen meshes have no collision at all.
Ah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so it makes it real easy to quickly throw together something cool. I learned that
the hard way.
Did you try and use them for something else?
Yeah, I learned that the hard way with the very first version of Creative Clutter we made, because one of the very first things I made for Creative Clutter was decorated workbenches.
Ah, okay.
And I started off with like the chemistry workbench from the loading screen that's got all these cool decorations on it.
Yeah.
And it had problems because it had no collision, and at the time I had no idea really how to steal collision properly and didn't know what I was doing. And I had problems as a result, and I ended up having to just recreate it from scratch rather than just being able to use the loading screen version.
Oh, bummer. You can see a lot of those load screens make me think, God, this is another example of us just going way off track what we were talking about. A lot of those load screens make me think that Bethesda originally designed the game way more detailed, and then once they put it on console, they're like, oh, we got to scale this way back.
Mm-hmm. I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, because like all the workbenches look way cooler on the load screens than they do in the actual game. Like, there's all sorts of cool clutter and stuff on them. Like, they look more in line with the workbenches that are in AWKCR as far as clutter level, and now the ones we have are almost completely naked.
Yeah. Well, unless you get the ones in Creative Clutter.
Right. Yeah, you guys have got some stylish ones with all sorts of fun stuff. You've got quite a collection of them too now in there, right? Because you've got small versions and full-size versions. And
Yep. And then we had requests to have miniature versions of like the AWKCR workbench and like the you know, the I think the weaponsmith bench. I can't remember. Stuff like that. And we thought about doing it, but because of the nature of technical stuff, we would be required to have AWKCR as a master on our mod. We couldn't just make it a master via script. It had to be a hard master, and we didn't want to do that. We don't want any hard masters on that mod at all, ever. That's a hard line for us. We can't do that.
Yeah.
So what we ended up doing instead was talking to Gambit and saying, hey, if we make these meshes for you, will you put them in AWKCR? He's like, sure. So he did.
Oh, that's so funny. So that's one of my big issues with AWKCR is it's so bloated file size wise that it's not tenable for Xbox users to use because of all those workbenches and stuff in there. And then that makes it less likely that people are going to want to parent to it, which is unfortunate because it's one of the that's like that mod makes the most sense to become like the universal parent mod that every mod parents to, because so many weapon mods already did and armor mods that it.
I think if they cut out all of the craftable armor and clothing, because all the textures for that custom.
Oh yeah, those are huge.
All those textures are actually what's the biggest file weight in that mod.
Sure. Because I bet the mod for the
meshes don't take up that much space.
Sure, but I bet the ESP is like 1 meg, but the mod is like 350 megabytes, so it's like it's way too much for Xbox users.
Yeah, it's texture weight is what it is.
That is a bummer. But yeah, that to me was one of the, because I've been looking for. I feel like we need in the Fallout 4 community, we need like a universal framework mod where we take all of the coolest stuff people have come up with, things like. The AWKCR keywords, the settlement menu manager system, all of these, and HUD framework, like all these things where everybody wants to take advantage of. If they were all in one mod, we could just basically let everybody have one master they have to deal with. And all this stuff users are absolutely going to want. It would reduce load order sizes. And I think AWKCR has the biggest install base out of all of the framework mods out there. But
on PC.
On PC. I don't know which one has the biggest install on Xbox.
On Xbox users use UCO instead. It's basically a really lightweight version of AWKCR.
Interesting. But it would make lives for players easier if we had a centralized one, and lives for mod authors easier because they wouldn't have to create two versions. It would just be, because creating the alternate version for Xbox, if you don't have to change your parenting or anything, it's not hard. It doesn't take long to update the BA2s and reconvert the texture files. It's not that big a deal. And then uploading, and then otherwise it's the same process as uploading to PC for Bethesda.net. So it's just like one or two extra clicks to get it up to Xbox.
Yeah, we decided for Creative Clutter, once we learned that the texture format absolutely matters in terms of proper compression for Xbox, that, for instance, BC7 files do not compress at all for Xbox.
Okay.
And so you have to use like DXT5, etc., DXT5 and DXT1 for Xbox for proper compression. And by compression, I mean that not just using the proper archive type for textures for Xbox, which, is of course the Xbox check, little thingy in the settings for Archive 2. Yeah. Not just that, but the Creation Kit and Archive 2 actually compress the textures above and beyond that if they're the correct format.
Okay. Yeah, they actually do it through, as far as I know, somebody explained this to me, they do it through Elrich, and there's a way to do it manually through Elrich. I've never messed with that, though.
Yeah, you can do it through Elrich, but also if you have the files in DXT type file format to begin with, the Creation Kit can properly compress them.
Interesting. This is stuff we need to get better documented for the community.
Seriously. Well, the only reason I know about it is from Tarshana, who does a bunch of Skyrim mods, and she has focused very heavily on doing console modding.
Okay.
In the last few years, and she read about this from some Microsoft developer on some obscure blog somewhere, that she found after multiple pages of Google search results. So, yeah, it's definitely not well documented.
No, there's.
But when we finally got all of the textures for Creative Clutter converted properly to that format, we went from 300 something megabytes to 200 something megabytes. We actually shaved 90, I think it was like 91 megabytes off of our mod
Wow.
just by converting the textures to the proper format to compress for Xbox.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And of course, Xbox users, their space is at a premium.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that
Unlike,
has constantly warped my development of mods, is knowing that they have this. And actually,
yeah,
I'm glad. I actually appreciate that is the case, because it makes it feel like I'm doing things more properly and not just cramming stuff in. For example,
yes,
there's often the temptation to tell our text artists, like, yeah, just make like 40 variations of that. Why not? If it's easy for you to do with the different color variations. But like, nobody actually wants that much choice in reality, because it's just, then you get paralysis of choice, and it's just like, there's just too many options. I don't care. Like those 3 shades of red are almost identical. So like, it at least forces me to think about stuff like that, where I'm just like, it better offer a substantial alternate option for us to bother to put the additional textures in there. So that's one benefit that having this Xbox choke point on. But man, does it suck for the players.
oh yeah. Well, and it sucks for mod authors and our creativity levels too.
Yeah, like, but again, that to me, that's
It,
sometimes
it's
you need edges on your box to force you to be more
yes,
creative.
but it also restricts your creativity in some other ways.
Yeah, I mean, there would definitely be a lot more variety, I think, in certain mods if we were uncapped by Xbox. I know certain parts of Sim Settlements would probably be better looking if we didn't have if we didn't restrict ourselves with Xbox in mind. But the whole game is kind of in that stage. Like, you can look at like we were talking about, the workbenches are an example. The shops, the default vanilla little shop stalls.
Oh,
You
gosh,
can
those are
tell
horrible.
that those used to have a bunch of items on them, and they were forced to strip them off for console. Like,
Yeah, too many polys.
yeah.
That's always the bane of creative clutter. It's yeah, how high is the poly count on that object?
Right. Yeah, some of
I
them
mean,
are pretty brutal.
we've actually removed some of the meshes from our mod because the poly count was just too high.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do that to our users because they're going to want to build all of those things, and it was killing their performance. And we were just like, look, we know some of our users are very dedicated to heavily building in their settlements. I've seen numerous users who say they just can't help themselves, that they have built until they literally couldn't even get to the settlement anymore without crashing.
That's what I'm doing right
So
now.
we're like,
I love it.
so we try and restrain ourselves, since we know the users sometimes can't.
Yeah. I mean, that's why they put the build limit in the first place. It was like, our engine is creaky.
Oh, yeah.
You should keep it under this, which is really why, like, that was one of the red flags for me with 76, was seeing that it's the same engine technology. I'm like, this engine cannot handle a lot of construction. So the workshop system, which should have been their crown jewel of 76 after they saw how popular it became in the Fallout 4 community, instead has to be super handicapped because their engine sucks.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. I mean, all those, trying to have too many players on a server.
Yeah.
It's no different than having too many NPCs in a cell.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the
There's a limit to how much it can handle.
Yeah. Well, and I was also shocked why they started releasing a lot of event systems trying to lure all players in the same region. It's like, that seems like you're just asking your game to fall apart.
Oh yeah. We've already seen how well that works.
Yeah. So I'm really hopeful with some of these next games that they will start investing in whatever is required to change in their underlying structure to make building more effective at a much greater scale. Like, I would love to see, the detail level that you see in their major cities. I think, like, that needs to be their aim to be able to be done in workshop mode, because I think that's what a lot of people want to do.
Yeah.
And I think there will always be a building component in Bethesda games going forward. I think it goes so well with RPGs.
I think what they would basically need to do in order to have player settlement building be more intense and heavier on the poly count is some sort of on-the-fly pre-combined creation system.
Which I think they developed for 76. I think that's how the blueprints work. I think the blueprints just generate a static collection and store it. I've talked to C. Dante about this, and he thinks he could set it up with F4OC to happen in Fallout 4.
Oh, that would be neat.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
I think that's a big part of it is just that we're maxing out Fallout 4's engine with creating these insanely detailed, heavily developed settlements.
Yeah.
And as much as I loathe the pre-combined system as a mod author, I think that's really the only way that's going to save us from
Yeah. I think
from these insane, settlement building.
Yeah, I think it would have to be even further. I think it would almost be like you would need to give players like a bake button that's like it takes the settlement and creates not just static collections, but actually creates pre-combines in the background while you're away.
Yeah, and there's this really great article on the old JebRWocky from Fallout 3
Okay.
about static collections. And when I first started learning about static collections, I found that article and read it. And there's some really interesting things in there. And my theory this whole time has been that the pre-combined system is basically just an extension of their original Fallout 3 static collection system.
Interesting. That would
Because
make sense.
in Fallout 3, the way static collections worked was you didn't create static collections of wildly diverse objects.
Okay.
The idea was that you created static collections of things that shared the same texture set.
Sure.
And if they shared the same texture set and you created the static collection, it had improved performance as a static collection with the same texture set versus those items uncombined.
Right. So this is if any of you guys have looked at or heard about the triangles and draws, the draws is the number of different textures on an object. That basically the game has to render it that many times, one time for each texture. So if they can reduce it down to a minimal number of textures, they can reduce the number of times the engine has to redraw the same objects.
Yes. And so even in Fallout 4, if you have multiple tri-shapes in a single mesh that are using the same texture, ideally you combine those tri-shape nodes into basically one tri-shape, and it's more performance friendly versus having them split up into different tri-shapes.
Sure. Yeah, so we almost need, because what I think the static collections in Fallout 4 do is each of the objects remains independent, so it still triggers the draws, but the game doesn't have to store as much information because it just has to store the location. So like if you had like 3 planks together, it just needs to store their positions relative to each other, and then the whole group can have things like its world position and everything.
Actually, one of the things I've learned through making static collections for the Nort Penthouse workshop is that if you are using multiple copies of the exact same mesh in your static collection, and therefore it has the exact same texture, if you export that to a mesh and look at it in IfScope,
it actually them together.
It combines all of those into one node.
Right, but that only happens if you export. I think if you look at the item, if you ever open up a static collection record, there's a little drop down, and you can see all the pieces and the positional data. And I've looked into Xedit, and it stores it just like that. So I think that the only way you get that benefit is if you export, which is a bummer.
And that could be possible.
That would explain why it's not particularly effective in Fallout 4.
But that also is why my theory is that the pre-combined system is an extension of the original static collection system and the Fallout 4 static collection system. It's basically they've got some sort of component in the engine side that's doing more than static collections have done on their own in the past. They've basically just expanded on it and grown it.
I wonder, now I've heard that the generating pre-combines actually runs pretty lightning fast in the creation kit. I've never tried it. Have you ever used it?
I never have, which is kind of funny because I've sort of become known as one of the people that knows about pre-combines, and I've never actually generated my own pre-combines.
I actually kind of want to try it because I'm curious at what pace they can actually do them, because that might be the target of where Bethesda could move with the engine to try and make it more functional. Because if it's capable of doing things really, really fast, like if they're able to improve the speed on that in whatever way in order for the optimizations they have to do to their engine, it could be something like right before a cell unloads, it regens its own pre-combines or something, and then then when you come back, it's got a new it'll just run that much quicker or something like that.
Well, I can tell you that if you're doing worldwide pre-combines on a potato machine, it takes a while.
Okay.
I'm friends with Chuck Steele, who made the
Beantown
Interiors mod. Yes. And so, of course, Beantown touches pretty much every cell
The
in the
whole
game
world.
almost.
Yeah, it's only
The
the
entire
only. I
world.
think the only worse offender than Beantown Interiors is 3D is the 3D NPC mod. What's the actual name? Tales of the Commonwealth.
Yeah. So, I was talking with Chuck Steele one time, and when he created the pre-combined patch for Beantown Interiors, he said it took his machine 3 days.
Wow. Although that is doing pretty much every cell, right? Like,
But admittedly, his machine is a potato.
right. Yeah, but I'm just curious how fast the actual process is, because like if you think about when you export a NIF, it doesn't take long. It's pretty darn fast to export like a single
Well,
static collection.
I would suspect it also depends in part on your CPU and possibly GPU.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
can say that with my new computer versus my old computer, previously, if I wanted to do a Conqueror run, I would spend about 2 hours sitting around twiddling my thumbs in the vault
Hmm.
before exiting for the entire Conqueror process to finish.
Yeah.
And with my new computer, it took, what was it, 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, I've gotten it really I've been going nuts with code optimization, so it's just faster in general, but it's night and day on a good machine. It uses a ton of processing power to do that. Which is why I
Yeah,
tell people
and
don't leave
the
the
new
vault.
CPU helped. It was night and day difference. Because I mean, I was prepared to sit here and watch TV all evening while it did its thing and not be able to play. And like 15 minutes later, I'm like, wow, you mean I actually get to play tonight? Wow, what a novel concept.
There's still a lot more optimization I can do to that system, but yeah, it's definitely, if you've got a good processor, it runs way better and it won't crash your system so much.
Yeah, but even with my lovely new 1060 GTX, which I know a lot of people have better even than that, but for me, this is like the best video card I've ever had.
You finally get to experience
it's
the
my
game at
baby.
60
I cuddle
FPS.
it.
Well, you went through
But
a nightmare getting a video card. I remember there was like a year
oh
there
gosh.
where the post office and I think Newegg,
Oh.
everybody just kept screwing you over and over again.
Oh, it was yeah, it was a nightmare. But yeah, the way we solved that was we just bought a whole computer instead of trying to build our own this time.
That's right. I actually there's a lot of people who argue against this, but I don't feel like there's enough of a value savings in building your own anymore. Like it used to be massively
For
different, like the cost
yes,
price. The
it used
cost.
to be much better, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, I've just stopped making them. I just don't. Oh, mostly because I just don't have enough time. But the
Yeah, that was the other thing too, is I mean, I've been building my own computers from scratch since the 90s, so it's not like I don't know how.
right.
It's just I'm no longer interested in spending my time on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I have other things I'd rather do.
That's what I feel.
But anyway,
And it got to a point where I was not saving. You know, when you did it back in the '90s, you could get a computer for like a quarter of the price as you could
oh yeah,
for buying it at a store. Now
absolutely.
it's like you save 10%, and I'm like,
May-
well, what? I don't know if that's worth
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Because now I have to
But
support my own warranty. Like that's less good.
yeah, well, but what I was going to say is that even with my new GPU, the city plans
Yeah.
are so hard.
Oh, some of them are
So
brutal.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how the latest patch improves that performance.
Yeah, it definitely, in our testing, it was a mixed bag. Some people saw massive like double digit FPS increases, and other people saw no improvement whatsoever. So I think it has to do with just whatever part of your system was getting hit the hardest, whether it was CPU or GPU or whatnot. The primary benefit of the way we did that, of convert, basically all we did was we came up with, and I'm saying we generously, it was all created a script that dynamically generates static collections out of chunks of the city plan, so that basically we reduce the number of objects by about 30% or so. So there's just way less things for the game to have to track. So it's definitely like, it's going to help with people with lower memory and lower CPU power. Probably won't have much of an impact if GPU was the limiter for you.
Yeah.
So hard to say.
So yeah, I mean, even on the new machine, I was previously doing a Conqueror run, and I come up to a city plan that's all kitted out at like level 2 or higher, and if I teleport into it, I have to like pause and like face my camera down to the ground for 10 or 15 seconds before I try and move.
Oh, that's
a little painful.
I hate hearing that, and that's a lot of people have told me that too. Like, I can get there as long as I look at the ground before I walk in. I was like, oh, that's not what the experience I want to give people.
Or if like you're coming up to the settlement on foot, I get like hitching, and sometimes even just walking up to it, I'll have to like stop and look down at the ground and let everything load.
Yeah. I mean, that to me was the number one reason I was excited for Fallout 76 when it was first announced. I was like, all right, we get a new Fallout game. Maybe it'll improve the amount of stuff it can handle, because the stuff like this, these are the things we run into as mod authors where it's like, well, there's nothing we can do. Like, this is just the game engine is not up to
engine
par,
limitations,
right? And I don't think it's fixed. I don't think it's realistically fixable, even with a script extender or like with custom DLLs. I think this game engine was not designed to do this. It is what it is, right? So it's just gonna always it kind of is gonna warp development of like what we want to do now, of like, all right, this is just, we can't go bigger than this because this is going to just ruin everyone's machines, and it's not fun.
Well, and there's a lot of things that that people have requested as clutter objects over the years. Like they want to have a model Pridwin ship. I'm like, do you have any idea how high a poly count that thing is? And you want me to shrink that down and put it in your settlement? Are you insane?
They want to put it in can you put it in a glass bottle too? Like, let's make it a ship in a bottle.
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Putting it in a glass bottle is not a big deal, but like...
Well, let's just add one more texture to the mix with some alpha. That'll be fun.
Ooh. And I mean, other clutter mods have done it, and I'm just like, yeah, we're not going to do that. That's not really responsible.
Well, this engine is very weird about what it can handle too. I've got two machines. I bought myself I have one that I bought for gaming that's got a nice graphics card, and then I have another machine that I just had for like work and stuff, has a mediocre graphics card or whatever came with it stock. And that machine with the mediocre stats runs better than my gaming machine in Fallout 4 for God knows what reason. So like the amount of like the quality of your hardware doesn't even necessarily guarantee you're going to have a good time in Fallout 4, which to me screams like massive engine problems. So. Yeah,
it's fun.
I mean, that's one of the things like that. As we kind of push the envelope of what we can do in Fallout 4, it makes me wish for where I join the chorus of like, they need a new engine, because I get that, like, but Todd Howard will always defend it, and the idea that this is just an engine is kind of a misnomer. It's really the core of what they're clinging on to is the set of tools, their workflow, the quests and the aliases and the fact that everything is movable and has physics like that. That's just like, that's kind of the skeleton what they're clinging to. They're not going to replace that, because that would be, then they would lose all those years of tribal knowledge.
I think too, so many users, diss on Bethesda saying, well, the Creation Club is however many years old it is now. Not the Creation Club, the Creation Kit. Yeah. That it's the same engine that they used to make Fallout 3. I'm like, no, it's really not at all the same engine.
Right.
It's been dramatically changed. Yes, a lot of it is the same, and yes, as a result, there's still some of the same old bugs, but I mean, they're massively making changes to the engine with each game iteration.
Oh yeah, it's not, I can't mod Skyrim anymore. Like when I try and make if I try to go make mods in the Skyrim Creation Kit, I'm just like, I hate this.
It's too different.
It's too different, and you lose too much power, because they open up stuff too with each game. They like give more power to mod authors.
Yeah. Now I always tell new users that look, looking at Skyrim tutorials are a great way to start learning modding for Fallout 4, but some of it is definitely going to be different.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, what's different is that there's so much more you can do now.
Right. It's like way more options to play with and tinker with.
Yeah.
So yeah, then you just feel super handicapped trying to go back to the game. So yeah, I don't think that that's a problem. Like, I think their workflows are cool, and I think it makes sense they wouldn't want to lose all that tribal knowledge, but they definitely there's definitely some serious limitations at the hardware interface level that they need to solve soon. And there's rumors going around, and it's hard to tell how much, there's so many leaks now in the game industry, and it's hard to tell which are true and which are not. Although more and more there are becoming credible leaks for every game company now. I think there's just enough disgruntled employees out there that are just like, screw it, I'm going to give this out to the internet.
Well, I mean, if you're working 100 plus hours a week, you're going to be a little disgruntled at some point. Stress is going to get to you eventually.
Yeah. Well, and then if they're not getting love from the boss, they can get it from the internet community. Get those internet points to boost up their morale.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the things they've said about Bethesda are that some of the engine problems are causing massive delays and forcing a lot of crunch on people in their next game,
Yeah.
and which wouldn't shock me at all, because they've got some
Yeah.
pretty massive things they've got to fix, because you can see them still in 76, the issues, like especially with things when we talk about build mode, which obviously is important to us in this community, because I think the people who stuck around, I think most of the people who stuck around to Fallout 4 and who play it practically daily, it's because they love the settlement system.
Yeah, that's really, and it goes back to the comment I made earlier that Fallout 4 really doesn't have a whole lot of high replayability in it like Skyrim did.
Yeah.
Not even with mods.
I will say it does have
settlement
really
building
good shooting gameplay. Like it feels really solid.
It has that, but settlement building really is the current game for people.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely the core audience playing it now.
Well, and I think that is a good audience to aim for long term, which clearly all the games industry is moving this direction of trying to turn everything into software as a service, which I'm not a huge fan of, that idea of trying to milk everybody for money with it like that. And there's also the problem of attention. Like, we only have so much time in our days to spend on any individual game. But if that is the model that everyone's going to chase, things like workshop mode just go hand in hand with that, giving people the freedom to build up their environment forever. It's a good model to just keep selling people more stuff too. Like, here's more items you can build with.
Just sell more Creation Club packs that give workshop items.
Yeah. So it seems to me like they're heavily incentivized to improve this system at the engine level for the next game. Like,
I hope so.
Yeah, me too. Because I love these types of games. I've always been into strategy and building games, so this stuff appeals to me greatly. Although I've never been much of the decorative person. Like, that's why I loved Creative Clutter so much and reached out to you, is because it's like I love when I want my settlements to look that detailed, but I am not ever again angling books on my shelf to look natural, because the one time I did it, I was like, that took me like 3 hours to get one shelf done. Like, it's just not tenable in the game.
That's why I started Creative Clutter, because I had that exact same problem. I was like, building this stuff in workshop mode sucks.
Yeah,
because back in the day there was Dinosaur's clutter mod, and there was Evan Pox's clutter mod, and Eleonora had a clutter mod, and I became friends with Evan Pox and said, Evan, let's go talk to Dino, and let's team up and do something, because trying to build with oh gosh, what is that mod?
OC Decorator?
OC Decorator. Because trying to build with OC Decorator, it was triggering me in non-pleasant ways.
And even with Place Everywhere, which is a brilliant mod, adds tons of freedom. Some of it is wonky. Like, rotation in that is miserable.
Well, I was trying to do back in 2016, so it was before Place Everywhere even existed. Ugh. And so, I mean, trying to decorate stuff with that, I was like, this just sucks. There's got to be a better way. And I discovered that decorating stuff in NifScope was just so much easier. Yeah.
I honestly think,
it was so much easier to create that stuff.
Yeah.
In some external tool, and then add it, as a clutter that you could just put one piece down that's fully decorated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of where, and then I took it to the next level with some settlements. It's like, what? Not only do I not want to place decorations, I don't want to place anything. Let's just take it all the way.
Well, and when you first came out with that, I mean, all of my settlements all had the standard square bunker.
Right. Everybody did that because it was
bunker style, the square style bunkhouse. That's just lines of bed along the wall.
It's
lines of beds, and that was it.
It's ironic that now with Conqueror we've got to the point now where we're like, okay, now you should build bunkhouses again because those make more sense than Conqueror. But
they really do. I just built one last night.
Came full circle on that. I mean, fighting the bunkhouses to encouraging them. But I mean, that's why, like, Conqueror to me is a lot of fun to experiment with a whole different side of the game of like all right, now we took you into slow-mo for 2 years with building settlements. Now we're going to focus on the action. Like, the settlement stuff is less important.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm actually surprised that we don't see more games with more effective build tools. Like, just give us like a button to bring up a number system. Like, give us the little pop up with XYZ. I think everybody now, all gamers are familiar enough with it where they would use those. They'd be like, yeah, okay, cool, I can do this.
Can you imagine the transform edit screen from Netscope in game?
Oh, that'd be amazing. Give me that, please.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yes.
Yeah, or like just switch away from like ditch the first person mode. Allow your your character to go away, and you just get a cursor that you can interact with and move stuff around. Like switch you to a Sims perspective in build mode. Oh, that'd be amazing.
Oh yeah, awesome. But yeah, basically, I became a mod author because I was too lazy to build settlements in game.
I agree. That's kind of why I did what I did.
And what's funny is now I have gone full circle, and now that I have done so much modding, I now actually have come to really enjoy using workshop mods to build settlements.
Interesting. I mean, I wonder if that's a phase. I wonder if that's a phase thing. I wonder if it'll be just like your burnout on modding. You're going to burn out on settlement design and be like, oh, time to get back in the CK and make myself these things.
Well, I generally only do mostly I just do like a player home. I'm not really, I'm still not into, building homes for all of my settlers.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had to build something for the settlers, they're still going to get the bunkhouse.
Right. Yeah, I'm finding
but
that
I'm really enjoying just building a player home for myself and decorating my own house. That's fun.
Yeah. I'm finding the same thing. Like on my latest playthrough, I've decided I'm going to turn my settlement into a city plan eventually. And I started to do the detail level that our team does, which is just nuts. Like they will go in and detail every single building and put down lots of clutter. And I started doing that. And I'm like, I can't. Just like the whole reason I created this mod was so I don't have to do this. But then I got to my player house. And I'm like, okay, well now I want to do it because this is my house.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's different when it's your own.
Right. Like I'm actually like,
if it's for some,
how can I cover
for
up
some settler NPC? Who cares?
Yeah, you can live in your trash heap. But like now I've like gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't even want those leaves on my floor. How do I cover those up? And I could care less. I actually I want more leaves in the settlers' houses.
Yeah, well, yeah, me like me. I'm like, the settlers don't even need a bunkhouse. Like I could just put up, one of the fuse boxes from my Fuse Box Generator Plus mod.
Yeah.
And that just takes care of all their needs for them.
Oh, it's got virtual beds built in?
Yes, it's got virtual beds, virtual water, virtual food, virtual defense, virtual happiness.
That seems perfect if you're going to go Conqueror focus. Just like, there you go, guys. Let's go kill some people.
Here, I don't care about you guys at all. You can just stand around during the night. I don't care.
And whenever I'm building test saves, I just take advantage of place everywhere and I just spam all the beds in the same spot. So then if I come by at night, all of my NPCs are stacked on top of each other. They're all like sleeping in a pile. It's just like one mutant NPC. Looks fantastic.
Oh, the things we do to our NPCs.
So I think this is probably a good spot to stop. I don't want to keep harping you on the mod pack stuff, but it's super interesting to me to see where things go because I think everybody who's opposed it has a good point of view. I think everybody who is embracing it has, obviously I'm on that camp. I think I have a good point of view, but I think it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. And it's going to change the community. There's no doubt about that. In some way, and in some ways it'll probably be positive. Some ways it'll be negative, and it'll be interesting to see how we adapt to it. Because I think there are ways where we can come to terms with it, and I think we can get some of these problems you've mentioned solved. But I think you're right that some of them are going to forever change things, maybe in a negative way, and I don't know that we can do anything about it.
Well, and beyond the motivational aspect, the other really key thing is that I just don't think it's sustainable in the sense of there's not going to be enough people with enough knowledge of how to do it.
Well, that's where I want to step in and stop things. I want to get more people educated. Let's get that education out there. Let's keep people making mods.
Yeah.
So that we can.
Because there's going to be a lot of mod packs that are created by people that have no idea what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
And
creating the mod packs. Yeah.
And all of the support for that ends up falling on the mod authors who are just like, I did not sign up to be customer service representative.
I think this is one of the points where I think us mod authors are going to have to put our feet down of being like, if you got my mod in a mod pack, you have to go to that mod pack author and explain it to them, and I will talk to them, but I'm not going to talk to you about it. Like, I think that is something we're going to have to like establish, kind of like we've established etiquette between what's acceptable for users to say to mod authors before they just get the ban hammer. Of which you're very friendly with. uh, you know what I mean? Like that early on in the mod days that you'd have, or especially with Fallout 4 and Skyrim Special Edition, when you had all these new influx of users not accustomed to it, where they would just come in all entitled, and we just had to like teach them. Like, nope, that's not how this works. I think we're gonna have to have another round of that.
Yeah, Thuggy Smurf makes a joke in his article about getting Skyrim bug reports in his Fallout mods, and that's actually happened to me as well. I actually legit had someone report an issue to me one day about Skyrim.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you might be lost. You're actually on a Fallout 4 mod page, not a Skyrim mod page, and I have no idea what you're talking about.
I haven't gotten that, but I've definitely gotten support requests for random mods that I didn't make, and they'll be like, and the thing will start out with, your mod broke my game. It did this and this. Is like, I've never made a weapon mod. I don't know what you're talking about, or something along those lines. Or like they just clicked on the first mod author they found and started typing.
Yep.
But it has been.
Yeah, that's the one thing that mod packs are not going to change, and that will only make worse.
Oh yeah, the number of fools in the world.
I'm not looking forward to an increase of that. Yeah. But that does not sound pleasant to me.
I am looking forward to, and I hope it comes true, is just an increase of people seeing mods, because there's so many amazing, and it just keeps getting better and better. Like some of the mods that have been coming out, I'm just blowing my mind.
Actually, one of the arguments that I have seen on this is that so many mods released these days get so little attention. Mm-hmm. That the odds of them being included in mod packs are fairly small anyway for any new mods coming out. If you're an older mod that's higher up in the, the top 500 list or whatever, you've got better odds than new mods coming out now.
I disagree with that sentiment.
I think that's true to a degree. I think that a lot of newer mods are not going to get the same attention and traction as older mods in mod packs.
I disagree with that. I think that, but that's one of those ones we can never know until it plays out. But I think that. Yeah. I think that mod packs will be trying to distinguish themselves from each other, and being a mod pack like curator that's on the ball and paying attention to the good new stuff coming out, I think will be huge for them. But we'll see how that plays out. I think automation is always inevitable, unfortunately. For better or for worse. I am on the fence, or on the side of, like, I think it's always a plus because it makes things easier, and I love making things easier. But I
would love to make things easier for the users, but not at the cost, not at the expense of mod authors entirely.
Expense of your own soul, right? Because
yes.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because we know it's coming. If not Wabbajack, thank or Nexus Mods themselves. So it'll be curious to see how it goes. But I think you have a lot of valid points, and I wanted to make sure that that they got some airtime, because I think I've been spending way too much time being all pro lovey-dovey with mod packs, but I think that a lot of these points need to be brought forward, and we need to have them in the discussion, and we need to keep them in mind when we're trying to develop the culture that's going to be surrounding these things, because that's going to be on us, and we have a big impact on that.
I'll remind people that, hunt down the Creative Clutter page, look at our hidden message, and go read our statement. Mm-hmm. It explains a lot of, it hits the highlights of all of the things that we feel about it. Not everything, but all the important points.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
And I didn't even cover all of the points that we have in there in this discussion tonight.
Oh, I know you have quite a few more. I've read yours. I've read Thuggy Smurfs, because I'm very curious to see what we can do about it. Because I think this is a solvable issue, but I think it's going to require concentrated effort by the people who are putting out mod packs, by the mod pack curators, by like I said, generating the culture around this, like what's considered acceptable. I think this is going to have growing pains. It's going to be tough. And maybe it crashes and burns. Maybe it succeeds. I don't know, but I would love to see it succeed, because I love more users. Like if we could go from having 5 million SimSalons players to 30 million, I am in. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm more concerned that it'll do something similar to the Minecraft mod pack community, which everybody always praises as an example of how mod packs have worked out really well. But actually, if you talk to the people that were involved in that, what it did was the community lost a huge number of mod authors. And the ones that stuck around, a lot of them were coerced and basically forced into accepting mod packs against their wishes. And I'm concerned that basically the community will steamroll over mod authors entirely in their quest for more content.
Interesting. Yeah, it'll be. It might be one of those things that is better served being introduced to a game at the get go. Like if, say, Starfield, if they were just a part of it right from the get go, where then the mod authors who showed up to the door would go in knowing that that's the case. Whereas,
yeah.
But again, it's all, we got to watch it play out, I think.
Yeah, and I'm not particularly interested in being involved in mod packs, and so that's why I fled to BethesdaNet, because they can't be automated downloads from there.
Not yet. Not
at this time. Well, legally.
No, I didn't mean it like, I meant like Bethesda wanting to get in on that action is more.
Yeah, I mean, he'd have to, Hal Gary would have to do some reverse engineering and hacking of Bethesda's engine.
Oh, I don't think it would come from that. I'm thinking more Bethesda will try and find a way to monetize such a thing.
But I'm saying that, doing that is very against their terms of service and what they allow. So
Sure.
Now the script extender team has a pass, basically. I don't know if mod packs will get the same pass or not.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see. Well, this has been awesome to talk to you. I'm glad we got to have this discussion. And if I've never said it aloud, thank you so much for all of your help with Sim Settlements, because I literally would have burned out in those first few months if I did not have your help. So.
I don't know how I managed to stick with you. I really don't. I had faith that it was going to do good things in the future, and I just stuck with it.
Well, I hope we've been living up to expectations, because it's definitely gone beyond my expectations, especially with Conqueror.
It has brought so many new mod authors to the community.
Yeah,
and that really is a win for me.
That is that's literally my favorite part about this, is how many people who jumped on board to make add-on packs and stuff. It was like, this is nuts. Like, and then I'm able to keep encouraging these people to grow and do more and more stuff, and that they keep sticking around and trying to add more features is so fun to see.
Yeah. And making their own stuff outside of it.
Yeah. Some people have just like, all right, thanks for the training. I'm off. I'm going to go make my own cool stuff. And it was just it's awesome to see too. Well, it's
been fun.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you for making the time. And we will hope to see some more mods from you. Maybe one day you'll return to the Nexus. But until then, if you guys want to get access to Damanding's mods and the rest of the Creative Clutter team, they are available on Bethesda.net. And I assume in your message on Creative Clutter, there's a link to that so that people can, so people don't have to go hunting.
Yeah. My Bethesda username is CrayonKit.
CrayonKit. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, if you go to any of the mod pages on Nexus, or if you just look at my user profile on Nexus,
there's links to
that also has a link. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, we'll talk later.
All right, have a good night.